Hey guys, so we're back from Tasmania and we were really struggling for power down there due to the low sun angle. In this video, we're going to upgrade our solar system so that our panels will tilt in preparation for an upcoming trip to the Snowy Mountains.
That way we can capture the full 1200 watts of our solar panels when we have a low sun angle outside. So we're doing a bunch of snow camping and all that sort of stuff and snowboarding. So we want to be able to hopefully maybe use our oven while we're down there. Roast dinner.
We want to cook a roast dinner in the van in the middle of the snow in the winter. Let me show you what's on the roof. So this is our solar setup. We've got 3 residential panels for a total of 1200 watts. The roof rack we made ourselves out of 38mm aluminium tube. So we wanted it to be lightweight. It's all riveted and bolted together. The approach was to make it modular, so we could make it in pieces and then we constructed it on the roof. And it's been pretty handy because over time we've been able to make changes without having to cut things. We just sort of separate them, unbolt things, and then add new bits as we need. The panels are attached just on these little Z section pieces of aluminium. So they span the width of the roof rack, and that's been perfectly fine. The panels are raised up above the roof. That gives us clearance for our vent and allows us to pack this stand-up paddleboard, and there's room for another paddleboard or surfboard if we choose in the future. I mean, this roof rack was a bit of an experiment. We didn't know how it would go. Traveling down the highway at 110 kilometers an hour, you get a lot of wind, especially if there is a headwind, but it's been super sturdy. We're gonna make some slight modifications to the roof rack so that we can get these panels to tilt. So this is the hardware we're gonna attempt to make this work. We're gonna add another piece of aluminium tube across the width of the roof rack to brace the roof rack and stop the roof rack from stretching, because we're going to be using gas struts. So we've got 2 here. One is 400 newtons, which is about 40 kilos of force, and 250 newtons. Additionally, we'll go with some stainless steel rivets and some bolts here and there, but we're preferring the stainless steel because they're a lot stronger than the aluminium. We've got some stainless steel hinges. The hinges will go on this side of the roof rack, and the roof rack will pitch up in this direction. This is just some extra hardware for the gas struts, and then we've just got these, and that's a bit of an experiment. I'm thinking these will attach to the end just to make sure that these 2 parts, the outer frame, doesn't separate due to the force of the gas strut. So I'm not sure how that'll go, but we'll find out. So the main constraint for this roof rack is lightweight and simple. We don't want any complex kind of contraptions, and we don't want to add, well, we want to add as little weight as possible to the van. I had a couple of ideas in mind, being some large sort of aluminium hinge mechanisms. Instead, I've opted for this system with the gas struts. I do have concerns with it. When it is in its packed down position, when the panels are tilted flat, they're still exerting force on the panels, which is undesirable. I'm hoping to get away with the 250 Newton gas strut, which is not a lot of force, and just rely on getting a high enough pitch of the panel that it's sufficient to hold the panel in the upright position. If this fails, we can try some other methods, but what we'll do is we'll start with just a sort of mock-up on the front panel here, and if we can once we get success with that, then I'll work on the other 2 panels. So for the next few days, this first panel will be out of operation, but that's fine because we're currently parked in Sasha's mum's driveway, so if we need to, we can always plug into shore power. So that'll probably just go there like that. We're gonna have to notch the ends of the aluminium tube so we can slot that in, and then we'll put a bolt through the end, and it'll go something like this. The one end attached to the pipe, this end, and then the other end attached to the panel up that end. But it'll probably be a bit further out. Currently the cables are over there, so we can't lift it from that point because the cables are restricting it. So I'm going to rotate the panel 180 degrees, have the cables connecting from this end, and then reroute them across to the other side of the roof where they penetrate. But before we do that, we need to cover the solar panel, because we are out in the sun and we are getting solar, to basically shut it off. So that panel is now dead. And this is the other end. On the little clip here, it says, do not disconnect under load. This one here is power for our awning. So all the hardware on the roof rack is stainless steel, and a lot of the fasteners, important ones, we have Loctite in order to stop them from coming undone. Moving to this side. Oh, I left my cutters on the other side of the van. I don't know how we're gonna do it. I'm a bit short. You know what? Can you jump down and get the cardboard? The panel is heavy. There we go. God, climbing on bins is never good. So we're going to attach the hinges at this end, and the panel is going to tilt up this way, and I'm hoping to get that high. So a pretty extreme angle. Next is figuring out how these hinges are going to sit, and already we have a bit of an issue. This roof rack is as narrow as it could be to fit these panels, so there's not a lot of room to fit a hinge down in here. Okay, so after a little bit of figuring, I think this is the way we're going to do it. We'll fasten that into the side face of the solar panel, and then we're going to need a 10mm aluminium packer to go between this surface here and our hinge. Cut it to fit the shape of this hinge, and that'll sit there like that. Alrighty, I had to duck down to the hardware store. Took me 3 days, but we're back. So what I want to work on first is this cross member that'll brace our roof rack and provide a connection for the gas strut. So this is my little workbench for this experiment. I'm pretty limited on tools, but I think we can make this work. It shouldn't take too much. We're going to use a 38mm bit. We're going to drill out either end so that the cross member marries nice with the existing roof rack. I'm actually using some fork oil from my motorbike for this because I've left my cutting compound in storage. Oh, I'm pretty happy with that. So there's our second notch. Okay, there we go. That's our notch at this end and our notch at that end. Alrighty, so you can see the notch there. It's pretty good tolerance. So now we're going to figure out how to actually permanently fit that. So this piece being the existing rail of the roof rack, and then we want to bolt through that, connecting into our new cross bracket there. So we've come up with this little piece here, which is effectively a nut. And I've cut it out of some rectangular hollow tube, and we've cut a thread that we can bolt through. This is some 6mm thick flat bar. I'm going to cut a chunk of this off and stick it down in the guts of this. So that'll give us an overall of about 11mm of depth to thread through. So I think that should be pretty strong. That worked a little bit better than I expected it to. So the next thing to do is I can just get it in there. It's quite a snug fit, which is good. So that'll slide down inside there. We'll drill a hole into the sides of the little nut and fix it in place that way. I've marked the center line of our nut just here. So if we slide that down inside there, you should be able to see when it lines right up in the middle. So if we drill a hole there into our nut, and then we can fasten that in place, and then do the same on the opposite sides. Ooh. Tell you what, those aluminium rivets are a lot easier than stainless steel ones. Stainless steel ones will break your arm off. That is our finished product there. So that's one end done. So it's pretty neat and tidy. Hopefully I'll have time to paint this so that it's black, matching the rest of the roof rack. So you can see the two rivets either side pinning into the sides of the nut. So our second version, much better than the first one. Obviously this nut is aluminium, so it's not going to have the holding power of a regular steel nut, but for the task we're putting it to, it should be fine. And there we have our second connection. So we'll go up for a test fit. Something like that. That's a pretty nice tidy junction there. And then we'll put a bolt straight through here, connecting into that little nut that we've made. That's it. It's pretty solid. It's sufficiently solid for what we're doing. The rest of these connections are actually made with a solid aluminium rod, which has been slid down the middle, the same as what we did with the nut, but it's about 1 inch long, so it's much more robust. This here, on the other hand, is a little bit lightweight, but I think that's okay. Okay, so the next job is to make some packers for our hinges. Use the rectangular hollow section. Alrighty, so we've cut a couple of lengths, and I've marked some holes that correspond with the hinges, and we're going to drill them out now. Okay, so that's our first packer. We're going to duplicate that over here. These are the nuts and bolts that I've been using to fasten the solar panels on the roof as they are currently. So I'll just use those, recycle them. You might notice there's a bit of white powdery discoloration there. That's because these are stainless steel and they've spent their life fastened into aluminium.
Got it?
Thank you. We've removed the top of the rivet. There's no point in drilling it out completely, but that's enough now. We can now place our little packer. So the hinges we're using are 316 stainless steel butt hinges, fixed pin butt hinges. So they're not going to come loose, they're not going to slide out of one another. So this is our little packer set up right about there like that. And we'll have two of them, one here and one over here. So now we'll start drilling some holes and attaching this. Alrighty, so that's one hinge mounted. Both hinges are mounted, the solar panel is sitting where I want it to sit, and now we'll probably fix these two holes here, same on both hinges, and do the sort of final test fit, and if that's all functional then we'll fasten the remaining holes of the hinges off and we can move on to the gas strut. That's going to be a lot of testing there just to get the right strength of strut, the right length of strut, and figuring out the geometry. So easy to cut threads in aluminium. Flip that hinge. And when we're done with this, I'll Loctite all of these. We can see the packer is sitting in behind the outer edge of the hinge. So what I might actually do is get a grinder out and just cut that off so that it sits nice and flush with the packer. That is a hinging panel. I want it to hinge even further than that if I can. It's got a bit of weight in it. It's 20, I think it's 20 kilos. I guess we'll find out. And the other thing is, you see the panel twisting quite a bit. I might have to come up with another solution here. I don't particularly like the twisting, although having said that, when the higher it is, the less twisting it'll experience. Okay, so I've just been sitting in the van for a while, just sort of thinking about the next step. So I've just been sort of drawing some diagrams and sort of roughly estimating how strong these struts need to be. So with the gas struts, they're constantly applying force against the sort of structure of the roof rack and the solar panels, both in the stowed position and in the upright position, and also in between. In my mind, I'm just picturing those gas struts constantly pushing. And when you're talking about 500 Newton meters, that's a fair bit. Combine that by 3. You get 150 kilos of force trying to push apart the roof rack, push apart the solar panels, and with all the vibrations being on the road all the time, you might find that they just kind of slowly tear things apart. I'm sure we could do it in such a way that it would be fine, but it requires adding more structure to the solar panels. So I've sort of changed my mind about how I'm going to approach this in an effort to reduce complexity, reduce cost, reduce weight, and reduce the structural stresses experienced by the roof rack and the solar panel. What I'm thinking now is simply using just an aluminium tube, one for each of the solar panels. So if this is your solar panel, you just sort of prop up the solar panel like that with this aluminium tube. The trickiest thing with that is just how it would connect at either end in such a way that if the wind does blow, it's not going to fall out. It's not going to be as exciting. The idea of you giving the solar panels just a little nudge and they unfurl themselves is kind of cool. Those hinges work perfectly fine. I'll just add the rest of the fasteners and they'll be done, and then do it 2 more times on the other 2 panels. Anyway, off to the hardware store again. Okay, it's another new day now, and I've gone to the hardware store yet again. Got a piece of aluminium tube, 16 millimeters. So that's going to be our fixed strut. We've got some split pins that are going to hold either end in place, but we'll see how that works. So we're just going to cut this tube in half. It's 3 meters long, so that'll give us 2 pieces at 1500. And that should give us about a 60-degree angle with the solar panel. So pretty aggressive angle. We can always adjust the length of the strut, bring it back down a bit if it's a bit too steep. We don't like it. And that's what the upper end of our strut is going to connect to. But I'm going to have to widen just slightly that hole so that it fits a little more easily over this little angle. We've got an Allen bolt and a nut and a nylon washer. Our bolt drilled a hole through the center of it, and this is the pin that's going to hold the strut in place. There we go. So something like that. We just come along with this pin, slot that in, and that's now locked. Okay, so that's it. That's how it's going to work. Now to do the rest. The next job is to basically just do the same thing to the other two panels. But I thought I'd show you guys the hardware that we're using to get the job done now that it's all figured out. These are 6mm bolts that we had used on the panels previously, and I'm just going to recycle them now. I've got some extra ones that are countersunk, and these are our packers. They're 10mm, which was perfect. And I've had to cut down the hinges. So these are 100mm by 85mm hinges. This is the top end of the connection for our strut, and a little pin there that'll lock that in place. These are some extra bits of hardware that is sort of unrelated, but I'm just going to do it while I'm up there. So this bolt will tap into the side of the roof rack and provide the bottom connection for our strut. I'm just going to basically fast forward this next part in getting these two panels done, and then the last job is to figure out how to lock the other side in place when the panels are stowed. I'm waiting on some pieces for that, but hopefully they arrive this week and I can get that done as well. Once this is all done, what we want to do is take the van out at say 4:30 p.m. when the sun's really, really low, tilt them up and see how much power we can actually get. Potentially you could have struts that are adjustable in length, but really primarily we'll only be tilting these panels during the winter and down south where it's snowy. Anyway, let's get into finalizing these last two panels and then we can move on. We're so close. This has been such a long project. Beauty. That looks pretty good. So this side's all done now. That's it. I mean, it might be nice to get some little end caps. I guess we'll find out whether or not those little holes whistle as we drive down the freeway. Now, I'll just go to the other side and we'll fasten off the little ends for the struts and that'll be done. So this is our roof junction box, and we've got one solar panel coming in on this side, another one on the back, third one on the side, our Starlink cable connection here, and then mains power which goes to our electronic awning. So what we're going to do with all these cables, we're going to cut them off somewhere and then run them all along this bar to the other side with new plugs and new cables from that point on. Okay, so we've done that bit. The last piece is this little piece of hardware here, and we've got 6 of them. Incredibly small, stainless steel spring bolt. This is what's going to hold the panels locked in place in their stowed position. And what I'm actually going to do is mount them underneath in this position, something like this. Got a couple of packers as well. That's our little latch. Okay, so I've installed all the other little bolts, 6 of them in total across these panels. So we have 2 at either side of the panel. The plan is simply that you drop the panel down and then you flick that latch, and then you give it just a little squeeze at either end. And that's it. It stops the panel from sliding forwards and backwards, and obviously it holds it down as well. Very small little bolts, but they don't require a lot of strength. They've just got to sort of keep it from jiggling around too much. I guess we'll find out in the long run how sturdy this is, but I'm pretty confident that this is going to be just fine. So the reason why I'm putting the conduit on this cable is because this is not UV stable cable. It's marine grade, but I was sent the wrong stuff, so I'm just having to cover that up to protect it from the sun. This cable, on the other hand, is proper solar cable, so that's fine. So this is the final connection now. I've got the panel covered up with a sheet, so I can clip that together. All right, so we're all wired up. This is our new setup. We managed to use what cable we had for the 2 rear panels, and we've had to add new cable, which is this stuff I was just mentioning here, to the front panel, which is connected way over there. That's all looking all right. Everything's zip tied up at the moment. So the last job now is to cut all the ends off these zip ties Oh, no, another one there. That's it. This is done. Last thing to do now is just to test it. So we've been waiting 2 days for the sunshine to come out, and it has not come out, unfortunately. So instead, we'll just do a little demo of how this system is actually going to work. Follow me. We do have plans to make a sort of fixed ladder on the side of the van one day. That's just another job for the future, but we don't actually need to climb up there to do this. So we take the pole, hook it up to the end of the little bolt there, and then push. Now the next job is to climb up onto the roof. That's it. So at this point, I'd be expecting lots of sun, somewhere over there, I guess. All right, well, now we'll do the opposite and put it back down. Pull all our pins out, up. The reverse is pull the latch, let it drop, and then push, click, push, click. With this last one, I'll show you there's another way to do them up. It's a bit sketchy having to lean over the edge like that, so there is another method. So now we could do the reverse of what we did earlier. We can't reach back up to the roof to press down on it so that it clips, but instead I can just sort of use this. What you do is get it up above there, just like that. So that's it. I'm pretty happy with the outcome. With all the hardware that we've acquired, I think we've added about 1.5 kilos to the van. So that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. Well, anyway, guys, I hope this was useful for you and your little tilt panel solar project or any other sort of van modifications and stuff like that. I hope this was somewhat useful to you. Thank you very much for watching. We're heading down to the Snowy Mountains in 3 weeks, so I'm looking forward to testing this out and seeing what we can get. The plan is to, on a snowy, cold, wintry day, have enough power to use the oven and maybe, I don't know, bake a pie or have a roast dinner or something in the oven. That would be sweet. All right, thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one.